Hi, and welcome to AJC Partners with myself, Sonja, and I'm here with Kevin Eyre, the founder and managing director of SoundWave.global. Hi, Kevin.
Sonja, hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
Kevin is gonna tell us a little bit about SoundWave. So just start us off maybe. What actually is SoundWave, Kevin?
Okay, well that's a good question. It's a simple question, and like everybody who works in this type of area, the answers are never entirely straightforward. I'll do my best. So SoundWave is a suite of assessment and developmental resources, which takes as its starting point an understanding of how people talk and the effect that talk has on how other people think, feel, and act. So the suite of SoundWave products is a range of online assessment tools that start with some very simple questionnaire and feedback reports and migrate all the way through to the analysis of real-time conversations and the effect that people are having. In addition to that, SoundWave consists of a series of development programs, which again run from simple one-to-one coaching at one level right the way through to total organization development. Okay, so that's sort of how SoundWave is in terms of products. If I go back to my starting point, SoundWave is really a product set and a method which tries to get inside how it is that people talk and the effect that the talk has. So you might say, why do we do that? And the reason we do that is at some level, talk is slightly neglected. When we think about what people do and when we're encouraged to analyze what people do, largely through the lens of occupational psychology, then we start to focus on behavior or perhaps on competence. But the aspect of behavior which we think is critical to human behavior is the fact that we have language and the fact that we use it all of the time, very unself-consciously, and it has all sorts of different effects, some of which we're very familiar with, some of which we're not. So what we try to do is we try to firstly help people to become conscious of how they talk, more self-aware. Secondly, we try to help people understand that the way they say things actually sometimes has quite predictable effects, and we can learn what those predictable effects are. And thirdly, we try to make sure that people have a broad range of what we term voices, instead of being more narrowly focused on a range of habitual ways of talking that people might use. I'll stop there, Sonja.
What does strike me though every time you speak about it is how much research has gone behind SoundWave. So can you tell me a little bit about the science, so to say, behind SoundWave?
Yeah, so I think the claim I'd like to make for SoundWave is that it is systematic in its approach. It doesn't pretend to be or seek to be a psychometric. Sometimes I describe it as a sociometric. We're interested in the quality of human interaction. We do, however, collect data. We have questionnaires. People respond to questionnaires in different ways. And so it gives us an opportunity to analyze the data and try to make sense of it. So with the SoundWave model and its 9 voices, we can do simple things like identify which is the most preferred and least preferred voice for any particular population or subset of any population. We can look at the relationships between the voices, so we can run some simple correlational analysis and look at those. And we can work out, for example, that some of the voices are not oftenly selected together when people are deciding what their preferences are in the way they speak. And other voices, for example, the challenging and advocating voices, are reasonably closely correlated. So if someone's choosing challenge, they're likely also to choose advocacy and so on. So in that sense, like you, exactly. So in that sense, there's science behind it. And what we're always trying to do then is to look at and understand and research what the real effects are of how people talk on other people. And these range, of course, from highly unpredictable in some ways. I'm talking to somebody I've never met before, there's no history, and I'm trying to say the right thing, and perhaps I will and perhaps I won't. Perhaps I'll have the effect I want to have, or I won't. But at another level, we can be really quite clear, and I think this is where there's some science. I know that if I challenge you very strongly, there will be a moment when you freeze before you start to think about how you're going to respond. Okay, and this is a very, very common and habitual and predictable piece of behavior on your part as a consequence of me skillfully using the challenging voice.
So you talk a lot about the effects it have on people. So what are the benefits then for us as individuals and also for organizations of using SoundWave and understanding these effects our language has, our talk has?
So it's really interesting. We have lots and lots of examples of individuals who will say that as a consequence of becoming much more aware of how they talk and becoming also more in control of how they talk, that they have improved the quality of relationships around them, professional and sometimes personal, and that has enabled them to perform more successfully in their roles. Now, we don't have one or two examples of that sort. We have dozens and dozens of examples of that sort. And I think the interesting thing about focusing on talk is it is a way in to an aspect, a critical aspect of human behavior over which we can exert control. We are flexible in the way we talk. We're not one type of person or another. I may have a core to who I am and might be characterized in a number of ways, but the moment I shift from asking a closed question to an open question, I change the nature of the reaction that comes back in my favor. So we talk a lot about context shaping the way we talk. So our relationship, for example, might have some history and characteristics to it. That might mean that we seem to start our conversations in a particular way. But equally, the way we talk will change the context and the relationship. So if I choose to say something was a little bit different and you respond, this changes what's going on. So talk is a really, really dynamic feature of the way in which we structure and create and maintain relationships and culture. And that's my internal link into what happens organizationally, because the work we do with an individual is a microcosm of the work we're likely to do at an organizational level, starting with leaders of organizations, enabling them to be much more dexterous, as it were, to mix my metaphors, in the way in which they interact with people, able to achieve organizational goals that have eluded them perhaps for some time. So a common one is leaders always talk about the need for ownership and then struggle to get it. Well, we know exactly how people need to talk to people in order to drive ownership. Mm-hmm. It's a secret I shan't tell you on this interview, however.
Now, thank you for that. As I have you here, and we are on the AJC YouTube channel, I'm going to have to ask, what led you to want to work with AJC Partners as part of the SoundWave Academy?
Okay, well, I suppose the starting point is that we see SoundWave as being something of an innovation. It has a history and tradition which is different from mainstream psychometrics. Our tradition is within sociology and some branches of linguistics, and maybe a smattering of anthropology. But it's human beings in the real world doing real things, taking action in specific contexts. That's what we're really interested in. We quite like understanding the underlying characteristics of people, but really only insofar as that tells us something about how they communicate. Now, given that as a background, we want to work with people who are similarly really excited about working with people, innovative in the way in which they go about things. And so AJC fit that profile. There's a nice combination of people in the business who are energized and young and keen, and there are some wise old owls in the business as well. I shan't mention any names. And that combination is really powerful. The difference is really helpful. And if talk is about anything, it's about collaboration. And I think in the time that we've been working together, we've established a really powerful rapport, which works well with clients. So I'm keen for us to continue our relationship.
I second that, most definitely.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, Kevin, there's one thing I've always wondered. Every time I'm around you, people have tons and tons of questions for you. But I'm wondering, what's the one question that you wish people would ask you about SoundWave, but they never do?
So there's a question which is seldom asked, and very occasionally it's asked, but it's a good question. Mm-hmm. And it's something along the lines of, do these 9 voices in SoundWave and their 9 accentuated, their 9 passive, is this it? Is this the full universe, the full range of the way in which people talk? And the reason it's a good question is because the answer to the question is, strictly speaking, no. SoundWave won't capture the universality of everything that human beings do, but it does capture something of the essence. There's a fun game to play with SoundWave, which is what's missing. And that helps further elaborate our understanding of the complexity and the sophistication of human interaction. So if anybody wants to work with us, the question I'd like them to ask is, what's missing? And for us, allow us to have an exploration of that.
I tell you what, I'm going to have a think about that right now. Kevin, thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure we'll speak soon.
Okay, Sonja, thanks very much. Bye-bye.